I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. I remember seeing the game for the first time as a young boy. It was in New York City, not far from Times Square. I was sure I could keep track of one card among three that were being shuffled on a cardboard box. And after all, a player seemed to be winning a lot of money. My dad told me to walk on, that it was a confidence game, a hustle, sometimes played with shells instead of with cards. Another childhood memory, an auction house on the Atlantic City boardwalk. Think paintings and antiques and jewelry. I was mesmerized. We watched, but my parents never bid. Next night we came back, we watched again. My dad asked, "What do you notice?" I said, "The woman in the front row is back and still bidding, but never seems to win." It was the first time that I heard the words mark or shill. Those childhood memories flashed in my mind this week watching the fallout from various nominees of President-elect Donald Trump. Each has been greeted with predictable praise and condemnation from the right and the left. And I can't help but wonder if it's not all part of the plan. Did you notice that the appointments seem to get progressively more controversial? The first three were Susie Wiles as chief of staff, then Tom Homan as border czar, and Elise Stefanik as UN ambassador. Some of the more recent ones, more controversial. Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. After the Gabbard and Gaetz nominations, but before Kennedy, I tweeted this. I said, I suspect Kristi Noem was thrilled when Pete Hegseth was selected, and now Pete Hegseth is thrilled to have Matt Gaetz, and Matt Gaetz can't wait for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be named. Each seemed to take heat off the one who came prior. And there's only so much bandwidth to keep track of them all. Somewhere in the middle was Mike Huckabee's naming as U.S. ambassador to Israel. A CNN clip from 2017 quickly gained traction where he said there's no such thing as a West Bank, no such thing as a settlement, no such thing as an occupation. If that remains his view, it's the end of any serious discussion of a two-state solution as we know it. And in any other news cycle, that would be a big deal, but now it's already forgotten. With each successive appointment, the cards just kept getting moved around. Attention spans were depleted and diverted. It became difficult to follow the latest move. It's worth noting that Trump's nominations this time stand in marked contrast to his approach in 2016. Then they were more establishment, less controversial. Yes, there were unconventional picks, including Steve Bannon as chief strategist, neurosurgeon Ben Carson for HUD. But he also initially surrounded himself with Rex Tillerson, formerly the chair and CEO of Exxon, as Secretary of State, General James Mattis as Secretary of Defense, General John Kelly as Secretary of Homeland Security. Senator Jeff Sessions was tapped as AG. Steve Mnuchin, formerly a Goldman Sachs exec, was tapped as Treasury Secretary. This time it's different. Noem, Hegseth, Gaetz, Kennedy. President Trump is inviting confrontation, almost daring the Senate to interrupt his moving of the cards. Surely President Trump knew that controversy would surround the naming of Matt Gaetz, and surely Matt Gaetz knew that his appointment will be a battle. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy immediately said that everybody knows he'll never make it. Maybe that, too, is part of the game. Gaetz is the shiny object. With his name, no one is paying much attention to Kristi Noem as the Secretary of Homeland Security. And he takes some of the heat away from the naming of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of HHS. And Gaetz benefits even if his bid fails. His naming gave him cover to resign from the House, thwarting the release of the ethics probe that would have jeopardized his congressional career, not to mention any cabinet-level appointment. And Trump just keeps moving the cards, knowing that if Gaetz isn't the AG, he'll land in some other corner of MAGA world. Maybe he'll even take the seat formerly held by Pete Hegseth weekend mornings on the curvy couch. And all along the way, many watching the action will cry foul, telling the American people they can't possibly allow this game to continue. And they'll do so with such vehemence that they'll actually increase the odds that it all succeeds, forgetting that these players intent on disruption are exactly what half the country was hoping and voting for, a rejection of the norms and the status quo. So be careful of not repeating the mistakes in the build-up to the election, thinking that because some observers are whipped up about the entire lot, so too must be the public at large.